Good afternoon, Kelsey Rose Healey. Welcome on VH Berries.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I am extremely grateful because everything you pass is becoming a striking entrada where sandalwood scented candles have been propped up, standing tall next to your sapid pursuit. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm excited to get to talk about everything and just get to chat with you. And thank you, that's very nice.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey, and a single look behind my shoulder is enough to notice that all that's left is dust rising from the dry ground, entering my sight and preventing me from seeing the summer Dara turned pretty.
The summer I turned pretty was very, very fun to work on.
It was a very fun project for you to be involved with, Kelsey Rose Healey, and I would love to discuss about it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and about Dara?
Yeah, so getting to work on The Summer I Turned Pretty was definitely one of the highlights of my career so far. It was just so amazing to get to work with such talented and fun people that I now consider to be some of my lifelong friends. I was very lucky to have made such amazing friends on this cast, and to really be a part of something. And even though I only went back for an episode for season 2, it was really fun to be able to grow and change with this character over a longer period of time. And it was definitely really fun to go to North Carolina and film on all the beaches, and just a really, really awesome show to be a part of. And I read the books for it. So Dara was a really fun character to play. She definitely has a little bit of like a popular girl mean side to her, but I think that she has a lot deeper to her of really having this community around her in Cousins Beach that she's created and is friends with everyone from this town from a very young age. So it was really fun to get to explore that and just be around such wonderful and amazing and talented people.
If I understood correctly, Kelsey Rose Healey, you went to North Carolina to become an investigative detective or potential double agent because you asked very precise questions such as, is this your first summer here in Cousins? And also, what is it like to live with Jeremiah and Conrad? Conrad's so mysterious.
She definitely is a little nosy for sure. Yeah, she's very inquisitive. I think that a lot of Dara's lines were very focused on the boys. I think that growing up around this beach town and these being like the hot shot guys in town was very interesting to Dara. So I was a little bit of a double agent on this one.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey, you were a little bit of a double agent, and the summer Dara turned pretty was in definitive preceded by the winters she turned under the barbell to lift those two questions. And I am very curious about how you did approach the idea of embodying her personality.
Yeah, so I definitely approached this as being this like kind of close-knit community. And I was actually born in North Carolina, so I tapped into a little bit of that North Carolinian kind of like smaller feel, knowing a lot of the same people and growing up with them. And yeah, I mean, I tapped into this younger version of myself that was in middle school and high school and was very like focused on like the social scene around me. So definitely that, and just playing into that younger version of myself. I can't say that I was very much like Dara when I was in middle school or high school. But yeah, I think that just playing kind of this younger version of myself that was maybe a little nosier, maybe a little bit pushier was very fun. And I think stepping into those characters kind of allows you to have this release of those thoughts in your daily life.
It was Kelsey Rose Healey, a relief of all of those thoughts. And you were very different from Dara when you were in middle school, because you didn't had that very bright yellow hat.
Unfortunately not. I wasn't going to debutante teas or participating in, cotillion or all of these big debutante balls, but that was actually a really fun part of getting to film the first season. Was we had to learn how to waltz for the final episode for the big debutante ball. So we actually did dance lessons for, I want to say, about a month before we got to the scene. And that debutante ball scene actually took about a week to film, just the deb ball scene, just because there were so many people and we all had these big fluffy dresses. And there was just so much coordination of dancing and different angles and different coverage. But the dance lessons were one of the most fun parts of filming that show. We had this really awesome dance teacher, and it was just so fun to get to go with the rest of the cast and get to learn how to waltz. I guess that's like a fun little party trick that I have now.
Furthermore, Kelsey Rose Healey, the credit for wearing that hat belongs to you, but the credit for the ideas and the making of those costumes is all going to Jessica Flaherty. Can you tell us a little bit more about those moments you were working together?
Yeah, we had a really amazing team of costume designers that really had such a broad range of topics to cover, because obviously this is a beach town, so we have bathing suits and trends that are going on and all of these debutante dresses. And so for the actual debutante scenes, we had to try on all of these insane dresses. They were all white, and luckily someone who was in our costume department and actually also in hair and makeup had been a debutante when they were younger, and so we had a little expert advising coming on from the inside, and we tried on all of these amazing white fluffy gowns, floor length, and we tried on different gloves and different jewelry, and we got to really work with the hair and makeup team to find looks that we all felt like were very us. So I know Dara had this really crazy updo that actually took a really long time to do every morning. But it worked so perfectly with the kind of like, I had this really cool strapless floral gown that felt very Dara. But the costumes were so amazing on that show, and just so much fun to go through such a wide range of events. Of one day you're wearing a bathing suit on a yacht in this beach town, and then the other day you're wearing a fascinator hat, which I can never say that I've worn before, so it was a first.
It was the first time wearing those pieces, and as a matter of fact, until today, they were 16 personality types. And now, adding the TSIPT as the 17th one, right next to the ESTP and ISTP, to pay homage to the initials of the summer I turned pretty.
That's a fun one.
This is a new personality type. And what were your most memorable moments playing in that television series as someone with that TSIPT personality?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many memorable moments, but there was one day that we got to film on a yacht, which was really, really cool, just to be on this boat in the beautiful Wilmington water, and we got to curl up with blankets. It was during the episode where we're playing Never Have I Ever, and we got to just kind of curl up on this really beautiful boat with blankets and all hang out, and that was actually directed by a woman named Erica Dunton, and she was one of our amazing directors for the show. There were multiple different directors, but she was a director that I, funnily enough, had worked with once before on one of my first jobs. So it was really awesome to work with her again and just get to have this really fun, memorable experience that I don't think is a very common experience, of getting to just play and do what you love on something as beautiful as this insane boat. And I'm really lucky that I'm really close friends with everyone. And so we just got to play. And another really fun moment was for one of the first seasons, there was a volleyball episode that I was not in, and a lot of the characters had to learn how to play volleyball for this episode, but it became a really fun thing in the cast to all play volleyball together. We would play on sand courts. We'd go to this place that had all these insane sand courts in Wilmington and just get to play outside with everyone.
Absolutely. Kelsey Rose Healey playing outside on the volleyball court is
I'm not very
something
athletic.
you will always remember. All through, you're not very athletic, as you just said. And Dara symbolizes with ease your way of playing and adapting yourself into each characters, because she also shares a similar clothing style with Keturah Strong, wearing traditional red coats and petticoats.
Yeah, they're really similar, you know, the neon clothes of Dara and these like big fascinator hats and everything to American Revolution clothing is a lot of crossover.
There is a lot of crossover. Kelsey Rose Healey, and I would love to explore that short film and pitch that is inspired from a book that I currently have in my hands called Redcoat and Petticoat, written by Catherine Kirkpatrick in 1999. And the paper back copy I have is actually very large, which gives us a better view of the illustration and a greater sense of immersion.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you have this book. It is and was one of the coolest projects I ever got to work on, and actually my first producer credit. So it's a project that I'm very passionate about. And there's a lot of connection to it. My dad is actually from the town in Long Island that this is based on, and I have a lot of family out there, so it was really sweet to get to tell even just a smidgen of this story. It is written as this short story, or this short film so far, and is going through pitches and all of these steps and rewrites, and I hope that one day we get to finish telling that story. But it was one of my first period pieces that I actually got to do, and we did, the costuming was amazing for it. It was all authentic and real, and I had to do the corset and the layers, and luckily it was very cold in Long Island when we were filming this, so all of the layering was actually quite nice. We had the bloomers, the undercoat, the petticoats, The corsets, the dress on top, the hat, the cape. I was probably wearing about, I want to say 10 pounds of clothing that day and through the days we were shooting. But hey, it kept me warm. But yeah, it's this really amazing story about this small town in Long Island that kind of had this really great shift on the American Revolution, and just about how this small family kind of got so immersed in defending the colonies and doing all of that. So it's a really amazing story, and I hope we get to finish telling it one day. And Keturah Strong is a really, really influential and powerful, strong character that I was really pleasured to get to play. And Multi-House was the company that we worked with to produce it, and they're amazing. Mike Tesler and AK were so amazing to work with. So I really hope that we get to finish that one day.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey. You hope that you will one day finish that story so that we can see you wear 10 pounds of clothes once again. And you could have done something about that specific point because, as you just mentioned, you were the executive producer alongside Michael Tesler, the founder and CEO of Multi-House.
Yeah, it was my first time really having any production credit and getting to be kind of on the side of telling this story and also being involved on the other side as well. And yeah, I mean, they took the lead on that. And it was a really fun learning process kind of throughout. And just everything was so collaborative and the team was so great. And we worked in all of these kind of real houses on Long Island that a lot of this happened at. And just it was so amazing to get to be a part of this historical story that also is really deeply connected to a place that my family is from. And I hope that, yeah, it gets to see the light of day at some point.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey. And in your own words, how would you describe the storyline of Redcoat and Petticoat?
Yeah, so it's about this family called the Strong family, and they are based in Long Island. And during the American Revolution, their father had actually been arrested for being considered a traitor. And our mother ended up having to take on a lot of his responsibility in order to defend the people and our family and warn about the British and everything. So she started hanging up petticoats and different colored coats in order to mean different things for the soldiers. And it ended up being this really strong story of these kids kind of getting involved and their whole world being flipped upside down, of their father being considered this traitor and their mother taking on this very strong role, and the kids taking on their own roles in this as well. So it's a much larger story than just this one family, but it still focuses specifically on the Strong family.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey, focusing on the Strong family. And Keturah Strong was, in that short film, often in the nature for the most part of the scenes, near a tree on a little hill. And we can summarize that as a one tree hill.
I love all of these overlaps that we're creating. Yeah, One Tree Hill was actually one of my first projects that I did when I was younger in TV. I had done a lot of theater and commercials and print before that, but One Tree Hill was kind of my first step into the acting world and the industry. And what's so funny is that story that I mentioned earlier about the director for an episode of Summer I Turned Pretty, and actually a couple episodes, was Erica Dunton, and she was my director for this one episode of One Tree Hill. And we didn't put this together until a little bit later on when I was looking through the credits on that and was like, oh my God, I know Erica. But I was 9 when I first did One Tree Hill. And I played this really funny role of being a wallflower that had a crush. And it was during this big dance episode, and all of the characters are kind of dealing with their love struggles. And I unfortunately got turned down as a 9-year-old by the person that I wanted to dance with. But then, similarly enough, I got to do some of my own turning down in the episode. And it was just so fun to be a part of that show. And once again, that was in North Carolina. So kind of a crazy full circle moment of getting to work with Erica on one of my first jobs, and then also one of my more influential jobs that I've done so far.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey. And the role that you played is called a wallflower, which means something completely different than the actual plant and flower, because it means a person excluded at a party, or someone who has no one to dance with.
Quite sad for my 9-year-old self at this dance.
It was a sad moment, Kelsey Rose Healey, and through that project, I learned that word and its use case that I will be able to say in a sentence, like, I felt like a miserable wallflower as a boisterous party.
I remember learning what this was for the first time too. At first, when I got the role, I was like, oh my gosh, wallflower, that's such a pretty name, so unique. And my parents had to explain to me what a wallflower was, and I was like, oh, that's a little less fun as a name, but it was so fun.
Absolutely, Kelsey Rose Healey. It was a very fun experience back in 2009. And your character appears in the episode 21 of the season 6 that is called A Kiss to Build a Dream On. And it makes sense because you built your dream career from a kiss to the craft of theater.
Yeah, I definitely started with theater being my passion. I started in regional theater in North Carolina, and my first play I ever did was Phantom of the Opera, the Esten Copper version. And it was kind of another full circle moment because Phantom was one of the first Broadway shows I ever saw and one of the first plays I'd ever seen that kind of evoked this love and for theater and acting and storytelling. So I did that, and then I did Annie. I got to play Tessie in Annie. I did Hello Dolly, and then kind of from all of the drama and plays, my dad was like, we got to put her into theater classes, acting classes. I don't know if that was out of self-preservation, maybe not wanting to see Beauty and the Beast in my bedroom for the 15th time that week. But that's how I started acting classes, and from there kind of got more involved in film and TV acting. But I definitely did start in theater and still have a very, very soft spot for theater. And I would love to be able to kind of transition back into theater at some point and do a play or something.
You're thinking about coming back to theater because your first play was called Phantom of the Opera. And since then, Kelsey Rose Healey, you moved to New York. But you're always coming back to North Carolina to do a lot of your work and projects because there is an invisible force absorbing you back to the Bermuda Triangle near Charlotte, Fayetteville, and Greensboro.
Yeah, it's so funny how I always get drawn back to North Carolina and Atlanta for a lot of my work. The South is just absolutely booming right now, and there's so many amazing actors coming from the Southeast and kind of all over, and I'm very, very lucky to have agents in the South who have been with me since kind of the beginning of my acting career, who have constantly gotten me work in the South. And so I'm very, very thankful for them. And I love coming back to the South for work. And it's always a nice break from the New York cold, especially during the winter months.
It is a nice break during the winter cold. And in conclusion, I am looking forward to witness those upcoming projects with potentially the adaptation of that specific book called Redcoat and Petticoat. And you may not remember North Carolina, but North Carolina will always remember you.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Kelsey Rose Healey.
Thank you so much.